Coming up on 5 Minute News. ISIS leader Quraishi kills himself during US raid in Syria. New intelligence shows Russia may be plotting false flag attack. And expert says global diplomatic failure made COVID far worse. It's Friday, February 4. I'm Anthony Davis. The leader of the Islamic State group blew himself up, along with members of his family, as American forces raided his Syria hideout on Thursday, the US said. The second time in 3 years the United States has taken out a leader of the violent group that has been struggling for resurgence with deadly attacks in the region. President Joe Biden announced the overnight raid by American Special Operations Forces, which U.S. officials called a significant blow to the radical militant organization. The IS group, at the height of its power, controlled more than 40,000 square miles, stretching from Syria to Iraq, and ruled over 8 million people. Its attacks in the region included a major assault last month to seize a prison in northeast Syria holding at least 3,000 IS detainees. The raid targeted Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Quraishi, who took over as head of the group on October 31, 2019, just days after leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi died during a US raid. Al-Quraishi, unlike his predecessor, was far from a household name, a secretive man who presided over a far diminished version of the group and didn't appear in public. Biden said Al-Quraishi died as al-Baghdadi did, by exploding a bomb that killed himself and members of his family, including women and children, as US forces approached. About 50 US Special Operations Forces landed in helicopters and attacked the house in a rebel-held corner of Syria, clashing for 2 hours with gunmen, witnesses said. Biden said he ordered US forces to take every precaution available to minimize civilian casualties, the reason they did not conduct an airstrike on the home. Biden, who monitored the raid from the White House's Situation Room, called Quraishi's suicide a final act of desperate cowardice. The United States accused the Kremlin on Thursday of an elaborate plot to fabricate an attack by Ukrainian forces that Russia could use as a pretext to take military action against its neighbor. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said the scheme included production of a graphic propaganda video that would show staged explosions and use corpses and actors depicting grieving mourners. The US has not provided detailed information backing up the claims. The plan for a fake attack on Russian territory was described in declassified intelligence shared with Ukrainian officials and European allies in recent days. It was the latest example of the Biden administration divulging intelligence findings as a tactic to attempt to stop Russian disinformation efforts and foil what it says is Vladimir Putin's effort to lay the groundwork for military action. If Russia does invade, administration officials say they want to make clear Russia had always sought to create a pretext. In recent weeks, the White House has said that US intelligence shows Russia has launched a malign social media disinformation campaign against Ukraine and has dispatched operatives trained in explosives to carry out acts of sabotage against Russia's own proxy forces. Britain has divulged intelligence findings that it says show Russia plotting to install a pro-Russian puppet government in Ukraine. Meanwhile, on Thursday, Turkish President Erdogan offered to mediate talks between Russia and Ukraine, and NATO warned that Moscow's military buildup continues, with more troops and military equipment deployed to neighboring Belarus than at any time in the last 30 years. One of the world's leading infectious disease experts said on Thursday the collapse of global collaboration during COVID-19 made the pandemic far worse and continues to put the world at greater pandemic risk than at any point in his working life. Jeremy Farrar, director of the Wellcome Trust, who quit as a UK government advisor in November, has previously bemoaned failures in international cooperation on COVID-19, but his new remarks amount to his strongest criticism yet of world leaders. This pandemic has been made worse, in my view, by catastrophic failure of global diplomacy, Farrar told an online briefing. I think it bedeviled the start of the pandemic, frankly. There's no doubt in my mind that the geopolitics of 2020 made this pandemic far worse than it needed to be. He said the situation could also mean that the origins of COVID-19 are never discovered. Without international cooperation, finding out more may be impossible, alongside establishing which other animal viruses might pose a risk to humanity. Farrar also argued that the world is attempting to move on from COVID-19 too fast, particularly considering the low levels of vaccination coverage in some countries. 1 week after England ditched all COVID restrictions, he said that he would have advised a more cautious reopening if he were still working with the government. My worry is we're going to try and move on too quickly. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.